Tinfoil hat time. Would society question the construction of an underground city?
Was anyone else shocked by that unexpected assassin?
Randall Pearson always brings the heat, but did rom-com ex-superhero James Marsden steal his limelight?
Did we just watch a truly unbiased, even-keeled political thriller?
Yippee-ki-yay! Red and Red Real Reviews breaches the new society in Hulu's paradise.
Ahoy, ladies! I didn't see you there. Would you guys like to set sail on this ocean of flavor?
Randall, okay, eye contact, please. You're gonna be cool, right?
Oh, baby, I'm as cool as the other side of the pillow. Been staring at this board for days.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
Act. Bears eat beets.
My brain is on fire. I'm dying.
I am the one who knocks.
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
When they say 2% milk, I don't know what the other 98% is.
It's hard to believe we're even the same species.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
Oh my god. The microchip has been compromised.
Dracarys.
And welcome back to the latest and greatest episode from Red and Red Real Reviews. And this one, you know, if it wasn't enough to deal with government cover-ups, wasn't enough to deal with insidious deep state kind of relationships, you got the cherry on top that anything Sterling K. Brown touches, and Randall Pearson, turns to absolute gold. So we have to answer our audience's call. Should they watch Paradise on Hulu?
Yes. I feel like I can say that without hesitation.
Without any.
Without any hesitation.
Yeah.
I just think that it's a great, I love the political thriller or whatever we're calling it, that the genre is. And I think that anyone who tries to watch it would enjoy it. I really think so.
And especially considering how many moving parts are going on throughout the series, it is so fast paced. Like there's not really any lulls in the action, so to speak, where it's kind of like a developmental episode and the pieces are coming together. Like the pieces are coming together, but you're staying engaged with it the whole time.
Right. It moves along pretty nicely, and I think that's really so. Dan Fogelman is the creator, and he's worked on a lot of original stories, or what I would consider to be original stories. He created This Is Us, obviously. He's the creator of that. He also worked on a show, Gallivant. It was like a comedy show, but it was almost like Monty Python-esque. And then it was a musical also. And then he's just like, he has the ability to write where it's like clever and it's funny and it's relatable, but yet it's also profound. So he wrote the movie Crazy Stupid Love with Steve Carell and Emma Stone. He wrote Tangled, or he wrote the screenplay for Tangled for Disney. So yeah, I mean, I see the parallels between even something like This Is Us, and you might be like, oh, well, that's like a family show, like about this family. How is that similar to this? But I see its similarity in the fact that it, has the ability to introduce these relatable characters that you connect with, but at the same time, there's sort of like pieces of the puzzle going on, and like, thinking of This Is Us, where you had all those flashbacks of like, oh man, that person is that person's mother, or wow, oh, that person, that young person right there it's a flashback of that person's daughter. Like you're making those connections, and it seems like the way that he writes and creates things, he's really creating these like aha moments where the viewer realizes, oh wow, there's a connection there.
And those flashbacks didn't distract from being able to follow the storyline. They just added to the sense of conflict between Collins and President Bradford, and then as well as Collins' internal conflict with his history with his father.
Right. And you were getting like characters' backstories, like you would see a character in the beginning episode. We see all these different agents. We see Jane, Billy, and then we sort of, not as much with Jane, but we did at one point have a flashback of Billy's life story pretty much. You know, what happened to get him to the point that he was at in present time.
Yeah. Lot of depth and heartfelt emotion with the added bonus of it being a thriller and fast paced and a lot of action. So it very much checked a lot of boxes.
Yeah, it did check a lot of boxes. And, you know, to me, obviously, he worked with Sterling K. Brown on This Is Us. And it makes sense that he turned to Sterling K. Brown to, you know, after they had worked together. And I mean, Agent Collins, or the person playing Agent Collins, they really had to carry the show. I mean, you know, to me, the way that I think about it, I'm just going to call him SKB, Sterling K. Brown. So he's just a special kind of actor. Like the way that he does drama, like I was just amazed because the way that he hardly tries, but he has tears like gush out of his eyes is like insane. Like that's just the kind of actor that he is. He makes it look effortless. And so he was a very, very strong lead in the show. And then the rest of the cast was just as strong. I mean, even like the guy who played Billy and the girl who played Jane, and, you know, even the woman who played Sinatra and Tarabi, they were all they've been in different things, in different projects, but they're not like household names or anything. But they all were very strong, I thought. I never was like, oh, like that actor is, you know, giving a horrible performance of that line, or, you know, it never took me out of it for a second thinking it was cheesy or that it was poorly acted or that it was unrealistic or anything. The whole cast was very solid, but Sterling K. Brown had to be like the anchor of that strength.
You're allowed to call him Randall too, because I still do.
Randall, you do?
Yeah, I do. He will always be Randall to me. But yeah, I mean, this goes. You always, once in a while, you bring up a show that like a character always annoys you, and we've had a couple shows where nobody's annoyed you. So this was kind of falls into that basket of nobody was really
yes. Yes, which is, I feel like rare these days, because I could name shows off the top of my head that I watch right now, and I could name at least one person, if not more, that annoys me in each cast.
Well, you can't be too annoying when it comes to loyalty, especially in something that, like you said, if we're calling the genre political thriller. Loyalties, we know loyalties matter in that world in real life. And we know that they have to be built in a fictional sense in order for it to be very believable. So we're going to talk about the loyalties that seem to shift throughout the show, which ones are really enticing. And I think a lot of them had something to do with President Bradford, which I just want to say right off the top, big level up to James Marsden, because the first time I saw him were the original X-Men movies, where he's playing Cyclops, and then he's done a couple cheesy rom-coms on the side. So I kind of was a little unaware that he could pull off such a serious role.
Yeah, and I mean, the last thing I saw him in from a couple years ago was the Jury Duty show, which, you know, he was playing himself, James Marsden. Marsden. Yeah, and so that was a comedy role, you know. So to see him in something like this, he's got the chops for it. I'm surprised we haven't really seen him in anything dramatic. I would love him to go more in that direction.
Yeah, and I think as his kind of character develops a little bit, you get the sense that, you know, because at first he seems very superficial rather.
Yeah.
He has this conflict with his father as far as following in the Bradford legacy, and because of that, he relies on the bottle a lot, and the relationship with his son is quite strained. So you kind of think of him as not very serious, or he's just in the Oval Office for the limelight of it all, and kind of playing the voters emotions and opinions, taking them for granted, such stuff like that. But as the show develops, you kind of see like he's actually is kind of he does have a strong moral compass deep down. He is a good guy because when he's presented, not to give away spoilers away, when he's presented with the decision to launch all the nuclear codes at the end, and he finds another path around that. And his reasoning for that is it's better to set society back than destroy it with one flip of the switch. So you kind of gain an appreciation for him that he's not this superficial type of flake character.
Yeah, and I think the way that they do the writing, his death is presented very early on, and what they're sort of doing is they're sort of giving you these little bits and pieces and these glimpses into what he was like in certain moments. And they, it's difficult because they want the viewer to make up their mind about, oh, was the death of this president, was this a good thing? Was it a terrible thing because he was a saint, And so we're kind of shown bits and pieces of things, and it's giving us suspense because we're wondering what kind of guy he is. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? And we're not really sure at some points. We see that he's very blunt. He tells it like it is, which, we're not sure what that means. We're seeing that he's having an affair with Robinson, even though he's married on paper, but he's living separate from his wife. We're seeing he has a strained relationship with his son. So like, how good of a parent is he? Does that determine if he's a good guy or bad guy? And so we as an audience kind of go back and forth, and we're wondering what type of guy he is. And they kind of like to, it seems like they enjoy leading us on that little roller coaster so that we can come to the end and make up the decision of what we think of Cal Bradford.
And even the ones that we see play out, like even his relationship with Xavier Collins, where we see it built up to be something good, and then the fallout from the miscommunication around Collins' wife to get out of the city in time, even that's kind of torn apart as well. So they play that angle with the relationships we kind of have a very tertiary understanding of, the ones we see developed.
Right. And they kind of, I feel like they do that with a few characters, not just Cal. For me, they did that with Billy as well. So for a few episodes there, or maybe it was 2 episodes or so, we thought that Billy was a bad guy.
Yeah.
So like they're making it look a certain way to place doubt in your mind, and then we kind of learn that he's a good guy, but he's done some bad things.
Yeah, there's kind of like a redemption arc to Billy's character that's built off screen, where it's the only kind of thread we have to his. I don't want to use the word purity, but like the good-natured part of his character. The only thread we have to that is Collins' faith in him. And that's it. And even that is tested. But that's kind of like the only hint we have towards, like, I don't like this guy's being painted as the villain. I'm not even sure if he's the villain.
Right. They're trying to place doubt in your mind. And what was crazy is, after we see into Billy's past and what he's really like, then you see that how he presents himself to his colleagues and everyone he knows is very smart, because he's making himself look like kind of a fuck up, like so that the audience and his colleagues really have no idea of what he's capable of. They don't know how dangerous he is, and they don't know that he's a lot smarter than he looks, and he's just kind of playing dumb, like he's this like slacker agent, that's what he gives off that to make people think a certain way of him to purposely mislead them.
Yeah, and it's easy to think that because you figure there's not many more ways you can F up than letting the president get assassinated while playing Nintendo Wii.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and the same thing goes for Jane too.
Well,
She,
that rabbit hole. Jane's a whole.
I mean, we still really don't know that much about Jane, but that's what I think too, is she's doing the same thing, as she's making herself look like just very, she's a female agent, so she's very professional, but everybody knows that she's very close with Billy, and she's, it just makes me kind of wonder what she had with Billy was genuine or not. It really, how do you know?
And you know nothing about. I'm almost starting more negative when I look at Jane because she comes off as this very aloof person
Right.
when it comes to her nature and her with Billy, and then we find out that Sinatra uses her as like a stone cold killer,
Mm.
very emotionless, very cold, and then like I felt like I had this sinking pit pit in your stomach feeling when she approached Presley at the end and pulled her out of that rally
Uh,
that Bradford's son was doing, and I'm like, oh no, what's gonna happen here? So to me, with Jane, like this is like one character that I'm still like on like the do not trust this person scale.
Oh no, there's nothing that can make us trust her now, and that's the thing, is I think they fooled us into thinking that Billy was the bad guy. And then the moment that, he comes home and they're sitting there, and I think he eats something that she made for him, or he drinks
Yeah, the
something.
cake. It was like a birthday cake or a celebration cake of some
And
kind.
then I think he grabs a beer or something, and then as he's chewing it, you can see that he's, like acting like he can't breathe, or he's something medically is going very wrong. And then you kind of look at Jane, and she's just sitting there, and you're like, oh no. They're like, it's like they wanted to make it her for us, that we realize Billy's a good guy, and that there was somebody who really was worse than him, and they got the upper hand and took him down. And
At,
that's what like was jarring.
at the point of finality, to make it that much more jarring, they don't let us know that until it's a very terminal state.
Right. And for the fact that, so you're kind of wondering, A, was she playing him the entire time? Was she just using him as an excuse, or using him to be the fall guy? And then also it's the fact that up to the finale, well, not even in the finale at all in this first season, Collins has no idea what Jane has done,
No.
and nobody has any idea what she's done and who she really is.
Yeah, they like we just think of her as this like Terminator style operator, and yeah, other than Sinatra, who is now, there's like
Mm.
there's no ties to like what kind of emotionless assassin she really is. I don't even think at this point Robinson's probably really aware.
No, I don't think anyone is. So it's crazy, the fact that she's managed to avoid everyone finding out. Like, she's that good and she's that dangerous that literally nobody knows what she's capable of.
Yeah. Well, other very dangerous characters is, of course, the primary antagonist in this, Sinatra. But where I
Mm,
kind of want to focus the conversation is on Gabriella Tarabi, who
mm,
is she's almost outright trying to expose Sinatra and Paradise as a whole when she's kind of having this flirtatious thing with Collins, going to the point where she makes sure that, they strip down and they have their little moment of lust in the shower to make sure there's no chance that anyone can hear what she's going to tell him. And then as the story progresses, Colin starts to put a plan in motion to expose Sinatra, and all of a sudden Tarabi's like trying to get him to veer away from that, and it's like all of a sudden this mission of exposure kind of dials down. And it's like, weren't you just like trying to put this woman in a position where everyone knows how much of a fraud and how maniacal she is? And it's not really clear that she ultimately accepts this until she starts working with Robinson at the end,
Yeah.
with the knowledge of I think his name may have been Trent, the old foreman, the old foreman from the Paradise Development site. It doesn't seem to be clear to her to re-engage this exposure tactic of Sinatra until they start working together, and they start seeing like what happened way back when Paradise was being developed.
Tarabi's an interesting character to me because I I think the issue is that Tarabi feels bad for Sinatra, in my opinion, because Sinatra was really her patient, right? And she'd seen Sinatra at her worst, at her absolute rock bottom with the death of her son. And I guess, not like I'm a therapist as well, or like I can really understand what that relationship is like, but I can't really fault her for being sympathetic towards a patient of hers who, like, she knows her entire story and she knows every little thing about her. And I think she just, as like a doctor or medical professional, really just like feels sympathy and feels sorry for her. So I think she's sort of conflicted in her feelings, and when Collins is wanting to, not really take Sinatra out, but to challenge Sinatra, she's kind of conflicted because she knows that what Sinatra's doing is not right, but she also like feels sympathy for her and knows why she is the way that she is. So yeah, and then I think, obviously when Robinson comes to her, she like closes the door on her, and Robinson has to like put her foot in the door to prop it up. So yeah, she has a lot of doubt clearly about going against Sinatra, I think, because I don't know, she probably can't really put her feelings aside because this is her patient. This is someone that she knows, went through a lot and probably has been affected by it.
To make that tie a bit realistic in the real world, you may be onto something with that kind of a sense of a Hippocratic oath, where she does see this as a disclosure or betrayal of doctor to patient situation.
Yeah, and almost like, wasn't the whole Hippocratic oath like do no harm? So I think she's. I think in her mind she's like, there's got to be a better way, or like maybe I can get through to her, maybe I can reason with her.
Yeah, maybe it became very clear to her with the whole Sinatra's a liar or whatever the Sky message was. It's like, okay, well, if she's not gonna figure this out and just shut the city down, then maybe I need to rework this in my head a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's something that you can see that she kind of struggles with because she's known Sinatra a long time, and it's something she kind of goes back and forth on.
So, being that there are some kind of real world symbolic measures in the show, we have to ask ourselves, could this really happen? And it's no secret that Hollywood loves to spin the climate change angle, the doom and gloom storylines, that sort of thing. And and it didn't necessarily feel like they were doing it, but they kind of snuck it in a little bit with the Antarctic base of the polar cap causing the tsunamis and that sort of thing. But I feel like after living through the big tech age where we have the Hunter Biden laptop story was covered up, and the questioning COVID was very covered up. The efficacy of the vaccine was a bit manipulated, to say the least. The war in the Ukraine, stuff like that. I feel like a situation like this and trying to keep the truth about what was happening with this disaster, I feel like there would have been a lot of people out there that put the tinfoil hat on and started to question what the government was saying or not saying about the threat of this global um, climate type of disaster coming with the tsunami. So did that feel realistic to you that this could have been kept under wraps until Bradford's moment of clarity in his address to the nation? Or is this something there people would have started to figure something out before it got to the point of impact, so to speak?
I mean, I personally, I could see it realistically happening easily. Like, I could see a world where there's some sort of impending doom or disaster, and the government is sort of cooking up this solution, or what they think is a solution to things, and maybe they only have the capacity to save themselves. Maybe they only have the capacity to save a select handful of people. But I could see that happening because, yeah, I mean, just the whole thing where, they have this group of leaders or group of people who are in the know, and they have access to this tablet of information. I could see, I mean, I know that there's a group of people in the world like that, so it's not really out of my mind to think that something like this could happen where there's some impending disaster and they're like, okay, let's build a cave in the side of a mountain, and only 20,000 of us can go. Like, the rest of us, you're kind of shit out of luck.
Do you think it's believable though that it could be hidden from the public with the world we live in of the digital age, that something like that could be hidden, like the underground site, sure, that could be hidden, but as far as the flow of information to hide the fact that this disaster was impending?
I mean, I feel like they've kept a lot of things secret for decades and decades. So why wouldn't they be able to keep, we might hear what we think are, for example, say they decide to build a cave. There's always going to be people working on it. Yes, they must sign an NDA or something, but damn well, at least one person is going to tell a family member, oh yeah, by the way, I'm working on this site, and I'm working for the government, and we're building this cave, and yeah, you might want to just keep an eye on. How is not one person gonna blab? And we've had all these conspiracy theories in the past, and there has always been at least one person, obviously we can assume, because there are always whistleblowers, there are always people telling the media or telling who they think they can trust, just so this is what's going on, and I have it from a very valuable source that this is going on. I'm trying to tell you that this is happening. And, a lot of people don't want to believe the truth if that's the truth. So yeah, I could see something like that go on for a long time. Look at the Kennedy assassination. They've kept that under wraps for decades.
And even the moon landing, like you said, how easy it is for someone to just tell a family member, hey, oh, by the way, this and this. But you tell me, even with the moon landing, people wouldn't be sitting there with that uneasy in their stomach about, oh yeah, this didn't happen, so let me just tell my husband, wife, my child, whatever, even if it was 15, 20, 30 years later. that sort of stuff. So yeah, I mean, the feasibility, even in things we know in real life, that individuals aren't going to talk with the people they're closest to.
Right. And it's just the nature of humans. We need to talk. We can't keep secrets. Like, yes, maybe we can keep a secret from the majority of people, but we're always going to tell somebody. Like, if humans didn't have that nature, you wouldn't have gossip sites like Dumois, where, people are writing in saying, hey, so it's a account I follow, but basically people give these insider tips, saying they'll send an anonymous email to the curator of this gossip, and they'll say, oh yeah, my sister worked on a set with Blake Lively and they said that she's a nightmare. Like they give all these insider tips, so we wouldn't have whistleblowers, we wouldn't have things like that, if it weren't human nature to tell the truth about what is going on in any given situation.
Yeah. And that being said, as this kind of started to devolve the world into chaos, when we think of, because yeah, I definitely think you were hinting at something with that whole collective group of elite that would, you know, funnel resources into building a sanctuary of sorts where they would be protected from that disaster. So, and knowing how egotistical and selfish these leaders can be, these elitists can be in real life, is it believable that a leader can have this moment of, I don't know whether integrity or clairvoyance would be the right word, where Bradford sits there in front of the nuclear football and all his generals are saying, hit the red button, hit the red button, we launch the nukes, you know, a lot of people are going to die, but we can't risk, you know, the, the enemies and our enemies in the world, you know, unleashing chaos, and then we're kind of restricted because we just got, you know, all our major cities and power wiped out. And for him to have this moment of saying, no, that's not right, despite Sinatra walking in on him and trying to steer him back in that other direction, he says, no, I'm going to use this blue code that nobody knows about except the president, where all it does, where is going to send a global electromagnetic pulse across the world and shut down the planet, shut down all the technology, including the nukes, and it'll set society back, what do you say, 500 years or so, but at least we won't have nuclear chaos and destruction and unnecessary loss of life. I mean, is that also something that's believable, where a leader in today's day and age would be so outside themselves that a big step backwards, so societally, I don't know if say socially would be the right word, but that would be the better decision over just having nuclear war everywhere?
I mean, I feel like I could see it. I mean, we don't know half of, not even half. We don't know probably 80% of what goes on. We don't know with a lot of the decisions that our the leader of our own country or the leaders of other countries come across and have to make every day. Like, that's not brought to the public, like they're just doing all these things. And like, I don't mean that in a nefarious way, but like, we just don't know the half of it, like they specifically don't want to say things in public because it's a security concern. We don't know half of the threats or the things that they're dealing with and that they have to combat in private. So yeah, I mean, I could see something like that, because I mean, just getting back to the elite and these situations, they could easily, they have the money, they have the means to do these things, and they could easily create this, magical button that does this kind of thing. I've heard of them putting a like a sky shield over our entire country. I didn't know that was a thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's very possible it could be a thing to hit one button and, wipe out these, electromagnetic things. So it
And
beats me.
it's funny to me because where I've heard electromagnetic pulse talked about either in theory or in fiction, is it used as uh, a matter of weaponry, as like target it to like shut down one particular country or the other. It's a
Mm.
very interesting angle to use it as like a global defense mechanism. Like everyone's out of hand, and this is just a way to kick everyone's
Mm.
temperature down a few notches.
Yeah, and thinking about whether this issue could really happen, and thinking of the fact that this show is a political thriller, I do like how they do it. Where you had that movie that was on Netflix, which I didn't watch, by the way, because I didn't really want to. But it was produced by the Obamas, and
Oh, I know. Yep, I saw it.
I don't know if you watched it, but apparently it had sort of a slant to it, where it was sort of, I don't want to say echoing ideals of a certain agenda, but I like the fact that this is a political thriller with no agenda or no real, I would say, parallels to like a real situation.
No, it didn't feel like there was any bias in this. Like
Yes.
there were a couple times they mentioned a party here and there, but I think Bradford even at one point said that he was actually deciding at one point whether to run as Republican or Democrat. They didn't actually say which one he was. So they did this show in the sense that you couldn't really sense a party line issue situation.
I did not even think of that, the fact that we didn't even know what his party was.
Yeah. And I will say though, I did watch that movie that the Obamas produced, and I personally didn't think that there was really a bias in that. I was almost thinking to myself watching, I'm thinking, wait a minute, because we know the Obamas are in that elite class. I was almost surprised that they would be involved in a project that kind of was a bit more conspiratorial.
I
So
mean,
I didn't really get that feeling watching it.
I heard other criticisms of it, which I won't get into, but yeah, I mean, that's why I like the fact that we were just kind of given the big picture view, but there wasn't any sort of slant. If you have certain actors involved in projects, or certain
Yeah.
like one thing that sticks out in my mind is the political thriller show with De Niro in it right now. I'm kind of resistant to watch that on Netflix, because I feel like it will definitely have a slant and try to mirror, what his politics are. And I don't want to see that. Personally, I don't want to see that. I like the fact that they kept it very ambiguous here.
Yeah, yeah, I did too. And it kept it kept the show kind of free of the eye roll. Once in a while we cover a
Yes.
show where we talk about, okay, this is a very good show, but we didn't. There really was no but in this, other than in the shower scene with Randall and Karabi.
I don't think I had one eye roll moment.
No, no, I didn't either. It was very clean. It was very neutral, but still engaging and interesting and topical at the same time.
And they weren't trying to make the characters, like, they weren't trying to model Cal Bradford after an existing president. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, they made him his own character, and that's what I liked about it. It wasn't like they were throwing in characteristics or making him look like a certain person to be like, oh yeah, that character's definitely modeled after that real person.
Yeah, no, I don't think there was really anything about Cal Bradford that I could liken to a real life president.
No, and that's what the best part of it was to me, that, I liked the fact that it wasn't based on anything. It did feel quite original. And even just, the part about Tarabi being involved in making this world, psychologically a certain way, a place where people can feel happy, and them bringing in this guy who was a bartender to have the bar in the little underground
Yeah.
city. Like I thought all of that was really interesting, how they based it on things like I guess they kind of looked at like big tech, and they were looking at billionaires like Elon Musk, and they kind of were inspired by that, but created this like fictional reality, which there were no similarities. So you weren't like, oh, here we go, they're up on a soapbox preaching
No.
about this thing and in doing this.
No, it was more, aside from the climate, the occasional climate note, it was a completely original topic.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And especially as far as the way each of the characters were built, like to have Collins built up as this guy who's very steadfast, loyal servant, but has this inner conflict from his, between his wife, his father, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it was just all very new, and that's the reason why I would want people to watch this show, is because how could you not like it? It's just it presents things in such an even landscape that it's just there's nothing that annoys you, nothing that frustrates you, nothing that you kind of draw similarities between in your mind. And kudos to Dan Fogelman for doing that.
Yeah. As we do sometimes, we take it down a little bit of a notch, and this was very much a thrill ride of a show, but there were moments of heart and humor. I have a couple that kind of got a chuckle out of. But one moment that I kind of thought is a sense of heart is, we spoke about Bradford's realization that he was not being truthful with the American people, and he had to readdress them to kind of, not to say blow the lid off, but at least be more transparent with this. And there are a couple scenes where, like one of them in particular, where they're getting ready to evacuate the White House, and he walks up to the custodian that's been there through many administrations, and he's trying to tell him, like, get out of here, go be with your family. And he's like, oh, I've been here for so many. I've been through wars, I've been through pandemics, I've been through this, that, and the third. And they always say it's gonna be the worst, but it always winds up being okay. And he's very resistant to leaving. And he says, like, oh, don't worry, I'll see my family at my granddaughter's birthday. And that kind of is what triggers Bradford to have this moment to go readdress the nation. So, like, was there anything else that kind of, either that one for you as well, or anything else that kind of triggered a more warm and fuzzy, so to speak, feeling?
Yeah, I had a few of my moments were just moments of sadness, kind of, or just a call to attention. So like, I love the scene between Cal and Collins after the assassination attempt, where Collins is in the hospital, and they have this whole exchange where it kind of solidifies their trust in each other and in relationship, because Cal is so grateful that Collins saved his life, but he says to him, saying thank you seems insufficient. And then Collins says, well, saying just doing my job seems lame.
Yeah.
But it was like a very human moment where, they were just like, this thing that we've been through is just bigger than us. Like, we still can't really like grasp it, but like, like we don't even know what to say to each other in this moment. So I loved that scene. I thought that was very well done. And I there was a lot of chemistry, like it wasn't like it was a relationship, but that friendship and that just like deep trust with Cal and Collins, like Cal knowing that this guy, like, he's not just hired to protect me, like he has my life in his hands.
Well, and it's a often used technique, this element of shared trauma to
Mm,
bring two characters together. Normally, we see it played out in a sense of romance, where
mhm,
you have two characters that maybe they can't stand each other, maybe they kind of look like, very much an odd couple pairing of sorts. But
mhm.
then the project of the film, show, whatever, has a sense of bringing them together because they just experience so many traumatic instances together that now all of a sudden they're thought of a unit now, and they eventually realize uh, that they're very much tied to it. So, in that sense, it was interesting to see it done in a non-romantic, used in a non-romantic kind of usage.
Right. It was the thing that brought them together after you saw how different of men they were. You know, you have Cal, who's like brash, and I think, isn't there one scene where I don't remember what it was that they were talking about, but Cal just says to him, "Oh, well, just say it. Say what you want to say to me. Just like I want to hear it." And Collins is kind of like, he like doesn't really want to speak up. He's been taught to just like, he's just standing in the background. He's just, he's observing, and he's just there to observe and just to zip his mouth up and say nothing. Like he's just,
Yeah,
background. And
I'm a soldier, kind of. I'm a soldier. This isn't my
right.
place. Yeah.
He's very much taught to be a soldier, and Cal is kind of like pulls it out of him. He's like, "Nope, tell me what you're thinking. Nope, I want to hear it. Literally, tell me."
Yeah, and even when I can't remember whether they actually showed it early or if they didn't show it till late, but their kind of final conversation before Bradford was killed, where he's like, you know, I forget where he asked for forgiveness, or is there anything I can do to make up what happened to your wife to you? He says something like that, and it's like, I can't sleep. Eventually I'll be able to, but not until you're dead, or something like that. So there
Yeah.
were certain like moments where they used to like stress the relationship that they had built up over the span of Collins's post.
Yeah, I mean it was so they started, being very different people, so it took a while for it took the assassination attempt to bring them together, and then they were very very close, like they trusted each other deeply, and then that moment with his wife you know definitely scarred Collins, so then he kind of like backed off on his trust.
Yeah. And there were other things that were a little lighter, and one of them, when it happened, I thought of you immediately because I knew you were gonna
Oh.
laugh at this moment when Tarabi reaches out to Collins and they meet at the diner, and they're talking about how the cheese sucks on the nachos they're partaking in, and I guess the the sustainability factor in Paradise is that they don't have to like necessarily herd food or grow, you
Right.
know, um, uh, flesh-based type of sustenance. So all the cheese is made out of cashews, uh,
Mm.
and plant-based. And he says, no, he's like, I think Colin's like, no, I don't like that stuff. I can't deal with it. It's like, oh, don't worry, it's different here. It's not the nuts, it's the chemicals. So it's like, here you are thinking they're having this sustainable type of living, and they're just ingesting themselves with God knows what to make something taste better.
Yeah, and it kind of also, I was thinking, do they in their underground city, do they even exchange money? Like it seemed like the people were just walking into that place getting the cheese fries, and like nobody was paying for anything. Or like when they went to the
Seemed like
bar.
it seemed like a commune of sorts.
Yeah, because like when they go to the bar, I think like, and I didn't know if it was sort of a sarcastic joke of like, oh, put that on my tab, because like they're
Yeah,
not
that's
paying for
right.
anything. I think
Yeah,
Cal said that when he went to the bar,
yeah. There's he's
or Billy or somebody.
Billy.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was Billy. I think it was Billy. I think because he leaves and he's all stressed out.
yeah.
Maybe it was before he headed back to the house or Jane poisoned him. Yeah, I think he said put it on my tab. And then the other thing I really got a kick out of is it's kind of like a throwback to nostalgia a little bit, because Die Hard is very much a movie kind of our generation was used to as being a sense of nostalgia. And there was one point early on where Bradford asks Collins like if he ever saw it, or he kind of makes a reference toward it. He doesn't know what he's talking about. It's like, oh, we gotta have a movie night. We gotta have a movie night. And then when he puts up the message in the sky to Sinatra, he goes, or the fireworks go off, something in that sequence of the show, and he just goes, "Yippee ki yay, motherfucker!" So not only do you have this nostalgic tie to Die Hard, but you also have this callback to earlier in the show, which I guess is kind of a heartfelt moment in the sense that he's saying it to her in a sort of remembrance of sorts to his relationship with Bradford.
Right, in the scene where they were talking about how Collins had never seen Die Hard, which I kind of realized I've never really seen Die Hard start to finish. I've seen bits and pieces of it, but I will have you know that my dad has always like regularly quoted that part. The Yippee-ki-yay. He's definitely quoted that.
You just
over the years.
Every so often, you just continue to blow my mind with something you haven't seen.
I've probably seen like a total of maybe 15 or 20 minutes of it. 5 minutes here, a couple scenes there.
So the debate every year as to whether it's a Christmas movie or not just is completely lost on you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Anything else that you kind of got a chuckle out of?
Well, not really a chuckle necessarily. My moments were all kind of like heart, or like, moments that hit you in the heart, or like kind of made you depressed. So the part when Sinatra's son is dying, basically, and she tells him that he's going to be going to heaven, and he was like, I wish heaven was more like here, but with more horse rides. So, like I was talking about with Dan Fogelman, what he likes to do is make the connections. So then you see flashes of the underground city, and there's the little horse rides like in front of every store. Like you see like 5 different stores where the horse ride is out front, which she did to pay tribute to him, in making the underground city.
Well, that was also because before he got really sick, they had that scene when they were at the grocery store, and he was always going. The father was always taking him outside to put him on the horse, put a couple coins in, and he would ride around on it too. So I kind of thought that, like, oh, that's like a tie back. That's like a callback to this kid's last good memory, really.
Right.
To really kind of jerk the tear ducts a little bit.
Right. And so it's like she was trying to make this city like as great as it could be, and she really wanted people to like it. So she kind of, you could tell she thought about what he said and when she was creating it. So that part kind of destroyed me. And then another scene that destroyed me was the crazy, like, complicated relationship that Cal had with his father, and his dad is talking about poetry, and like he's got dementia or Alzheimer's or something, and I think he's saying that basically that poetry is the only thing that he can recite or read where he like doesn't really get confused or something. So so he's reading from a book, he's reading some poetry, and he's talking about how Cal's mom really liked poetry. And so they're just kind of sitting there and having this conversation. And Cal asks him if he's ever been proud of him. And his dad says, "You never did anything I didn't do for you," which I took to mean as basically like, I made you into this. Like like, yes, I wanted you to be president. I wanted you to be in politics, but like everything you achieved, like you achieved it because I put you there, basically. Which,
Yeah.
like, then you see Cal's reaction to that. Like he's just kind of taken aback by that, and then I think he goes up to his room and kind of drinks himself into a stupor because he's thinking of it, and it's just it's terrible because like you can tell that the reason he drinks and part of the reason why he's kind of is a low-key alcoholic and reclusive and stuff is that probably from this relationship that he had, this dysfunctional relationship he has with his dad.
And we're brought back to that when he's constantly in this Alzheimer's type of demented mode, and he constantly thinks that Jeremy is Cal. And
Yes.
Jeremy comes to visit him. It was not the tablet moment, but it was something else, because the tablet moment Presley was there. But he comes to ask him something, and him thinking the boy is Cal, he apologizes to him for that entire interaction about not being proud of him and not achieving anything that he didn't do for him. So like he kind of apologizes for that, and Jeremy almost has to like sit back and not correct him to say that he's Jeremy and not Cal, but just accept that in that moment he needs to be Cal just for the benefit of his grandfather's kind of healing or redemption.
I think that was sometime after Presley came over and the grandpa scared her.
Yeah.
And so she left in a panic, and then so Jeremy's kind of like mad at his grandpa, like, oh, why did you do that? Like, why did you scare her? I think he's starting to yell at him, and then his grandpa kind of just snaps into a state where he thinks that Jeremy is Cal, and he says, he's like, you know what? I'm not proud of anything I did, but I'm so very proud of you. I was just like, I was like, the grandpa understands, and he's making peace through Cal. Like, yeah. So that was a moment that destroyed me.
Never would have thought to get the waterworks going over a political thriller.
Yeah, but it's just, I mean, it's the acting, and it's the relationships and the connections that, yeah.
So, we don't necessarily know if this will be coming back or this is just going to be a limited series, but they at least set this up. They left the series off on a note where you would think this has to have another season planned, whether or not Hulu gives it the green light or not. To me, the big elephant in the room is Collins getting behind the sticks again. He had left Flying Behind, many years before, and he takes one of these decommissioned planes in the bunker off to find his wife. So to me, that's like the big elephant in the room as far as what to look forward to. What else do you have?
Well, I did look it up, and so I didn't hear anything about it, but apparently it was officially picked up.
Okay.
A few weeks ago, in February, and then so the creator says it's planned out to be just 3 seasons, and it's going to be 8 episodes in each season. And I guess they're about to go into production. So they're kind of saying you're not going to have to wait long. Like, it's not going to be a 2-year wait. It's probably going to be released beginning of 2026. So we're looking at like a year, which is pretty good. So we don't have to wait too long. I really want to see if the rest of the crew, so like X and everybody else, if they see Jane's true colors in season 2, if we're going to figure out that, to figure out if, the truth about her killing Billy and all of that, and her working with Sinatra in that like assassin capacity, and, what will happen with Collins going in search of his wife. Jeremy seems to be getting pretty comfortable being like an advocate. Like, wanting to advocate for truth and exposing truth. So where will that take him? Like, will he kind of become, part of the crew and helping Collins and maybe Presley, figure some things out? And the last thing is, now that Cal's assassin was identified and he killed himself, what sort of mystery or conflict will be the focus of next season? Like, I know obviously they have this search for Colin's wife, but like, when the public is kind of discovered the truth about everything, like, is it just going to be like complete anarchy in this underground city? Or is everyone going to want to say, I want to get out, let's get out immediately, and let's go back into our country, and let's get out of here?
Yeah, I didn't necessarily think of that because I was so caught up in Collins and Jane and Jeremy to an extent. But that is true, and I'm definitely curious about Jane. I want to know whose side she's really on. She goes from dimwit gamer to the super soldier, with zero emotion whatsoever. So I'm very curious to know. And like, why did she fake shoot Sinatra in order to save Sinatra? So is she really on Sinatra's side? Is she playing Robinson? Does Robinson have like a backdoor tie to this? So like, that is very curious to me. And then the Jeremy thing, the quote to me was on the mixtape where Bradford says to him, "You are me. If you don't like the world I built, fix it." So I think that was almost like an inspiration of leadership to him challenging the hierarchy inside of Paradise.
Yeah, like, is Jeremy gonna kind of lead the resistance? If there's this backlash where people are wanting to get out and they're like, this whole fact that we're in a cave in a mountain is bullshit. Like, if there are people alive out there, like, why are we still in here? I could see him kind of leading that whole resistance or rebellion.
Yeah, we all lived through COVID. We know lockdowns don't work and people don't like it. So this could be a similar parallel.
Yeah.
Well, if you like our show, if you think we're a parallel to anything, please give us a 5-star review and let us know what you think of each episode. 5 stars if you're listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can also find us on iHeartRadio. And video-wise, if you just enjoy seeing our ginger faces, check out YouTube and Rumble. You can follow her over on Instagram and TikTok at Binge the Ginge. That is dots between the words on Instagram and all one word on TikTok. And myself, Nutmeg 2 Palmetto, that is the number 2 on both platforms. Reach out to us, let us know what you think of the show or shows that you think we should cover. Red and Red Real Reviews, that's N, the letter N, and real with 2 E's at gmail.com. And next up, we are heading back to the office. Not really, but kind of in a figurative sense, to try and figure out what the heck parallels, speaking of parallels, Severance in its second season is trying to make to corporate life. That's on Apple TV, so catch up, and we'll be right here talking to you as it wraps up very soon. Until the next real review, Red and Red are signing out.
In less than an hour, aircraft from here will join others from around the world.
Don't act so surprised, Your Highness.
Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
What? Do what?
No. Try not. Do. Or do not.
Because I don't want no scrubs.
Let the dogs out, like, who let the dogs out? Who?
Who brought this guy along?
I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chum some of this shit.
One more thing. Do me a favor. Don't go chasing waterfalls.
Mankind, that word should have new meaning for all of us today.
You're gonna need a bigger boat. Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
I'll take care, all right? Nothing but love for you. Nothing but love for you.
Have any clue what's about to happen to him?
Oh, not a chance in hell. Good night.
Peace!
son of a bitch, you did. Not funny anymore.
You'll see references.
Still nothing, I swear to you.
But as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night, we will not vanish without a fight, we're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.